You're now standing inside Crummins Roman fort. Now, the consensus is that there was no real occupation of this fort before the Antonine occupation in 142. The Antonine occupation lasted about 20 years, till about 162, with a break somewhere in the middle. They don't know where, and they don't know how long. Then they disappeared and came back during the reign of Septimius Severus. They thought round about 208 and lasted until Severus himself died in York in 214. But the consensus was that they were here probably 3 or 4 years before. So instead of 208, they were probably here about 204, 205. So they're here about 10 years rather than 5 or 6 years. Now, it's still unclear where the actual breaks were, because one of the problems we have is the fort has been built in so many different sections. It's been built, demolished, built again, and then modified. The one thing we are certain of is it's considerably larger than a typical Roman fort. It's about 5 or 6 acres in size, which is probably about 50 to 60% bigger than a standard Roman fort. So go along Hadrian's Wall, much bigger than any of those, much bigger than anything else on the Antonine Wall. It was surrounded by stone ramparts all the way around, about 20 feet high, 4 foot thick stone, with a big double gatehouse, stone-built gatehouse. You came in, this is the Via Principalis, and fronting onto it was the headquarters building, the Principia, which was built underneath the kirk. The red gravel outline you see in front of it was a courtyard in front of the Principia. The bit this side of it, outlined in red gravel, was a Roman store building, and there are others over the other side. About 4 or 5 years ago, the community re-excavation of this area, because it was decided that they didn't really believe what had been decided in at the end of the first dig. They believed that the Romans had probably been here later, and they wanted to prove it. It didn't prove that. What happened was they dug down way below where the initial excavations had stopped. They carried on down and found another Roman level. And the question was this pre-Antonine? Was it Flavian? Or was it another Antonine occupation? It was determined ultimately that these were workshops. They weren't barrack buildings. The barrack buildings are way to the south of the kirk. Now, they've all been excavated. Now, these buildings here were clay bonded, stone built, but instead of using lime mortar to glue the stones together, they just used clay. That's the reason you're seeing the red gravel, because while the walls are relatively high and solid, if we exposed them to the weather, the clay would just be washed out and we'd end up with a pile of rubble. This section of the wall here has been demolished and rebuilt using lime mortar. The other ones that you see over there were pointed with lime mortar, but they still have the clay bonding. It's an experiment to see if it will withstand the weather. The stonework that you see was all quarried locally. If you walk up the side of the River Arm, this side is all heavily quarried, and it's that type of stone that is used all through here. When the Romans left, they demolished the major buildings. A few years back, when they started to build the Brighouse estate, which is about 400 or 500 yards to the south of us, they found major the defensive ditches, triple ditches, and the stones from the gatehouse, when they demolished the gatehouse, they chucked the stones into it. And we believe the same thing happened with most of the things around here. The locals used it for their own buildings, and I believe if you took all the Roman stones out of Cramond, you'd end up with a pile of rubble. Cramond would collapse. Cramond Kirk uses a lot of Roman stones. You'll see them in the side here with a particular kind of cross-hatching which the Romans used to square off stones, level the faces of them. So you'll see them in there, you'll see them in the kirk tower. The stones from the old gatehouse were enormous, about the size of a filing cabinet. You'll see them built into the kirk tower. For a long time we couldn't understand where these huge stones had come from. But when they dug out the defensive ditches and found the remains of the gatehouse stones in it, they're exactly the same.